Thank you very much all for being here and for taking the time to join our first open session. These events will be held weekly on a weekly basis, sometimes 2 times per week, another time just one. And I will just present the team. We have an amazing team here backing up this event. So my name is João Fernandes. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DocDigitizer, and I'll be your host for today's session. And alongside with me, I have Claudia Mateus, that is our hyperautomation consultant, and that will be helping me with all your questions. So let's make this session as interactive as possible. So feel free to click on the bottom right and ask questions. Some of them will be answered during the session. Some of them will be answered offline in our follow-up. Also with me, Miguel Franco, that is our automation project manager, and Miguel will be helping me with the demo. So for today, we have a very interesting agenda. We will start by describing a little bit about the challenges behind intelligence document processing. I see here that we have on the audience a lot of people that are working with RPA, with automation, and probably you already know some of the tools that are on the market. So I'll try to explain a little bit about the market itself, the challenges, and of course what we do at DocDigitizer, how it works. For today's session, we will have a demo on our API. These demos will be different from session to session, so stay tuned. At the end, I will reveal what are the next sessions about. And of course, the most important part and juicy part is the Q&A. So throughout the session, please drop questions, and Claudia will make sure that all of them are answered. So going straight to what is intelligence document processing. I'm seeing here a lot of people working in technology, so I'm assuming OCR rings a bell. OCR is a pretty mature technology, and if you'd like to see it this way, intelligence document processing is just a new generation of what traditionally was called OCR. It's not really the same, and in fact brings a lot of new approaches to the problem. But before I elaborate more on that, let me just share with you that intelligence document processing is a way to cope with one of the major challenges nowadays for companies. 80% of the information that is exchanged worldwide between companies is unstructured data. And unstructured data is anything that ranges from a document to a photo, to a chatbot interaction, to an email, to a video, a sound, something that contains critical business information, but at the same time is not prepared to be automatically digestible in your software. So this means that there's an efficiency gap here. You receive a lot of information, you need some of the data that is present within that information, but is not actionable until you deploy some staff, some people to digest all this content. So intelligence document processing aims at helping companies to overcome this challenge of unstructured data processing, making and opening the door for what is called hyperautomation. Okay, and that is the reason why it's so connected to robot process automation. So there was this first wave of RPA projects where people automated the most simplest processes with very simple projects, like rule-based processes, like copy pasting from an Excel spreadsheet to a form. So these were the first quick wins on automation. But as we automate those, it becomes more and more difficult to find suitable processes where you have a business case. And the reason why it's so difficult is because most of these processes rely on unstructured data. And by relying on unstructured data, it's impossible to deploy a robot that is traditional rule-based to handle scenarios that are far from being standard. Okay, so this is why intelligence augment processing and RPA are side by side, um, providing the ability to automate more complex processes and in what we call hyper automation or cognitive automation. So I will stop here and kindly ask my colleague Claudia to drop you a quiz. Okay, and this quiz you'll see it's a pool that is available on the bottom right of your screen. And this pool is very easy. It's what is the main challenge that you face on your projects related with implementing an IDP tool, an intelligence document processing tool. So I think based on what I see in the audience, I see a lot of people that are already implementing some of these tools. So I will leave a couple of seconds for everybody to just drop their votes, and I'm very eager to understand what is your perspective on this. Okay, so I have 20 votes now and counting. Guys, don't be shy. Just drop the votes. 26, 26. Just a couple more seconds to let everybody vote. $31, 10 seconds, guys. 10 seconds, we will close. Okay, great. So as you see here, most of the people voted in two answers: data validation and document quality. Okay, there are it's very clear that they are somehow related. Okay, because if quality is bad, probably it will require more data validation. But it's very interesting to see that most of the people think that the main handicap is data validation. And let me elaborate a little bit about the two main challenges that IDP faces today. IDP is a very complex space. And the reason why it's complex is because it's handling unstructured and long tail scenario. Long tail means that there's a lot of variability and the inbound of documents is most of the times unpredictable. So the first challenge is related with the setup. How can I train a model that is capable of understanding how to read the document if I'm not able to predict the format of the document, the template, okay? Or if the template changes a lot. So this raises a lot of challenges when it comes to either templating or model training, because it's very hard to cope with this diversity of formats that is in fact increasing and not decreasing, which is slightly counterintuitive. The second biggest challenge is related exactly with data validation, because at the end of the day, you are required to streamline data that is correct. Because if not, you will be streamlining errors, and the cost of correcting those errors upfront on the process will be very, very high. So you are picking up stuff from documents, and then you need to be sure before you streamline that data into the process that the data is correct. And that is where human in the loop enters. Okay, so human in the loop is a term that is gaining more and more awareness on the market, but it's essentially to have people supervising all this pipeline of data processing. And this is very important. Why? Because it's the most costliest part of the process. So comparing to setup, where you typically it typically is 15 to 20% of the total cost of ownership of IDP. If you look at data validation, it accounts for 60%, which is huge. So these two together accounts for more than 80% of the costs, which means that the licensing of the IDP solution is more or less 10%, 15%. And typically, people tend to neglect the cost of these two. Okay, so what we did at DocDigitizer was essentially acknowledge that this problem is very hard to tackle. It's very complex, and in fact is becoming more and more complex over time. But this doesn't mean that that type of complexities should be handled by the customer, okay? Because the customer at the end of the day just want to get the data flowing without worrying about training, without worrying about technology, without worrying about if the template changed over time or not. And they don't really want to have people there looking at the documents and looking at the data and see if this is correct or not, because they want to automate the process. So what we did was essentially come up with a product that is able to offer intelligent document processing with no setup, with 100% accuracy, and with a full pay-per-use model, which means that we are essentially removing the hurdles that you find typically on implementing intelligent document processing, absorbing those hurdles, and we will take care of them on behalf of our customers. Our customers will only need to send us a document and get back 100% accurate data. Just a few remarks. We are featuring several reports of Gartner and Forrester, G2 Crowd, Capterra. You can go there and see some of the reviews done by our customers. But I would say that most of you are thinking, okay, this should be too good to be true. So there must be a catch here. Either it's magic or something like that. And we heard that a lot. So sorry, guys, we are not doing magic. We are just combining three things that tend to be separated on other solutions. We are integrating AI, a very powerful AI data capture model with human in the loop built-in human in the loop pool with a lot of tools that often are coupled with OCRs. And this allows three things. First, allow us to use our human in the loop as a way of training on the fly. So instead of having this huge setup phase, we would just train on the fly, which means that in some cases, the human will kick in, review the data, correct the data, streamline 100% accurate data, and at the same time, they are training the model. They are training as needed, okay? And if the layouts change, they will be kick in. So we remove the need for having this huge and costly setup at the beginning. Then we also remove the human validation, the need for human validation on the customer end, because the validation will be done using our built-in human in the loop, which is far more efficient, scalable, and elastic than deploying people on the customer side. Okay, so this means that the customer doesn't need to worry about any of the things that you tend to see as challenges in IDP. And finally, we are able to deploy this under minutes. Okay, and the reason why is because we are training on the fly. We are doing the heavy lifting on behalf of our customers. Okay, so I would not say that we are doing magic. I would say that we are looking at the problem from a different perspective, probably a broader perspective. So this is what happens behind the scenes. Essentially, we allow people to input documents. Each DocDigitizer subscription is set up to process a set of documents with a set of data schemas. And those data schemas, as you will see next, are simply the fields that you want to capture from each document. our system will break the extraction field by field and will do this multi-field and multi-pass entity extraction between humans and machines, and they will be kicking sometimes with no humans, sometimes with one human, sometimes with 10 humans. And at the end of the day, this is what allows us to build up the JSON and get the trusted data back to our customer. So if we compare this to what you probably know in terms of an OCR, what we are trying to do here is to simplify things, is to remove the hurdles, is to collapse a lot of things that take a lot of time and making them much more flexible to the people that are using DocDigitizer. Because at the end of the day, they just want accurate data as an input. This table here is slightly dense, so I will just highlight a couple of things. We contractually assure the quality, which means that we have a level of service with penalties, and we commit with 99.999%. Okay, so it's not a prediction, it's not a possibility, it's something that we write on the contract. We provide out-of-the-box support for a lot of use cases, fully pay-per-use, starting at 9.5 euros per month, support for unstructured documents, and the setup lead time and the processing lead time of documents is minutes. Okay, and you see here the comparison between us, an OCR, and an OCR plus data validation. More than talking, I would say that you can try it, because most probably these PowerPoints are very, very nice and very pretty, but at the end of the day, you want to see results, and even more with your own documents. So I encourage you, and Claudia, please share this email on the chat. I encourage you to try it by yourself, and to try it, you can send an invoice. It must be an invoice because of the standardization, but send any invoice to extract@docdigitize.com. And what you will get as the reply as for that email is all the information, address plus line items of that particular invoice. Okay, so you can try with as many invoices as you want, anytime, how many emails as you want, and be sure that we don't train with the documents that we don't know that you are sending to us. So this will prove the no setup and also the data quality part. Okay, so please try it. Just forward an email with an invoice. You can take photos, you can send a PDF. Try it by yourself. Okay. Just before the demo, and just for you to know that DocDigitizer is not offering only power capture, is not only offering data extraction. We are building layers to help companies to be more efficient in the way they handle unstructured data. So we have a layer that allows to detect fraud on documents, which is very important for financial services, QIC processes, claims. So we are able to detect signs of fraud and attach those controls to the API response. And also we are allowing people to use our world object that is pretty much a layer that help us to standardize information such as addresses, names, which means that you will not receive a string as it is written on the document. You will receive an object of an address which has a lot of properties, and that way it's easier to compare, to handle all kind of unstructured data. And I would say that we can go to the demo, but Miguel, before we start, let me just show here something that I think is relevant. On our developers portal, you find a set of guides and documentations about DocDigitizer. Our developers portal is available on developers.docdigitizer.com. And today we will do a brief demo with invoices, okay, with financial documents. Financial documents for us is as this data schema here that you see. It's a lot of information probably you are not able to read it all, but just for the sake of understanding that our data schema for invoices is able to provide you more than 30 fields around line items, tax breakdowns, others, and it's available out of the box for any invoice in the world, okay? So let's see this in action. Miguel, can you share your screen?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let me just share my screen.
And people just send questions, okay? Okay, so what you are seeing here on your right is Postman, okay? For the guys that test the APIs, this is pretty familiar. So what you are seeing here is an endpoint, the submission endpoint, where at the other you will have your API key, so the way you can authenticate your calls, your API calls, and on the body you will have the file, okay? And the file may be in JPEG, PNG, TIFF, PDF, okay? And once you submit this request on our API, you will get back a response with the status that was accepted, but at the same time also with the processing task ID. Okay, this is very important. So every time you send a document, you will get back a processing task ID. And this task ID is what allows you to query results or be notified that your document is ready. Once again, I call your attention that this is an asynchronous API. And the reason why it's asynchronous is because it's impossible to reach 100% accuracy in real time, as you can imagine. So this is asynchronous in nature, which means that it can take a couple of minutes to the results to be available, okay? So let's jump into to the get details of a document endpoint. In here, you will be able to, using that task ID that you see here on the params, you'll be able to query the results, okay? So what you are seeing here is a JSON file. Can you just, yeah, exactly, expand that. So you see here that you have a set of line items, and from those line items, we are capturing different kinds of information. Typically, the information that is written on the document, like item code, item description, the unit, the quantity, the base amount, the total amount of the line, okay? So the one is the unit price, the other is the total of the line. And you have that, that kind of structure in an array. So if you scroll down, you will see that all the lines of the document were properly captured. Two things that worth mentioning. First, you see some fields that are empty. And the reason why they are empty is because that particular field, although is present on the data schema, is not present on the document, which means that, of course, it will not be extracted, okay? Alongside with the line items that you see here, you also have a set of other information, okay? And this other information is essentially the vendor name, the emission date, the document type. In this case, this is not an invoice, it's a purchase order, the document number. So a lot of information regarding the other. Also, it's important to mention that all this information that you are seeing on the is API is already verified, which means that you don't need to do any additional validation on this data. You can just streamline that to an RP, to an accounts payable software without the need to have a human in the loop on the customer end, okay? Let's see a more difficult one. Miguel, do you have, oh, okay, that one is difficult, okay? So as I mentioned, we don't process only this very standardized format, very nice, very pretty with a very nice table. We also process photos. We also process something that, some documents that have very low quality and with a structure that varies a lot. In this case, a receipt, okay? It's the same, okay? So the data schema that you will see on the JSON will be the same as you saw before. Probably it will have more fields that are empty because in this case you don't have quantity. Probably you have quantities, but you don't have units. You don't have all that stuff. But you see here that this was cheese something, right?
That's yes.
70.88, and then a tender something with the value there. So it's and you have also the other file, right? The other stuff. Can you show the others? Okay, McDonald's that is there. Can you zoom in on the photo just to see the McDonald's? Okay. Okay, so as you see here, this is almost completely, it's more or less unreadable, but still we were able to capture this information. Okay, so this is like the standard way of interacting with DocDigitizer. You'll have an API, you'll have an API key, you can send documents. That API key, of course, is associated with a subscription that allows you to process and a set of data schemas, as you saw here, and it's as simple as that. No setup, no type of training or layouts or case-by-case scenario. Is just sending documents and receiving data. Okay. Miguel, thank you very much for this demo.
Thank you.
Claudia, do we have questions?
Hi everyone. So I have already some interesting questions. Thank you so much for your great questions. The first one is from Christina. Are you limited to processing invoices? What kind of documents do you process?
So DocDigitizer process any type of document. Okay, we are working across several industries, automating different types of processes. The one that we showed was essentially an accounts payable automation process where you have purchase orders, credit notes, debit notes, and invoices. But we work in QIC processes, processing legal contracts, ID cards, passports, payslips, bank statements. So we process any type of document in a lot of different processes.
Great, João. Our second question is from Vicent. If you have a human in the loop, how much time does it take to process a document?
Okay, processing lead time can go down to 2 minutes if needed. We have different processing lead times available, starting from 2 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. It strongly depends on the requirements of the customer. So depending on the use case, the customer define with us the max processing lead time, and all the documents will be processed under that processing lead time.
Okay, João, thank you so much. Another great question from José. How can I set up new templates?
Okay, so that is a very interesting question. DocDigitizer doesn't require you to set up any template, which means that that work will be handled by our human in the loop. As I mentioned, we do this training on the fly. And this means that you don't need to get any data set or be worried about template by template configuration.
Perfect, João. One more from Francesca. What are the best use cases to apply DocDigitizer? Do you have case studies?
Okay, so the best use cases to apply DocDigitizer is anything that in any process where quality is very important. Okay, so since we are doing this data validation as part of our service and providing back 100% accurate data, this means that this is particularly relevant for process where you are keen on having correct data to work with. So this is one of the types of process that we handle. The second one would be a process where the information is very long tail and you cannot predict the formats or the layouts. And finally, in processes where you have a very narrow time to market, like you need something up and running under 1 week. And these are more or less the use cases. Regarding the case studies, if you go to www.docdigitizer.com, you'll find a set of use cases with videos, and also in Tutor and Capterra, you will have access to customer testimonials. And I would say that there's a lot of information there.
Okay, perfect, João. We are having a lot of questions, but let's try to make it two more. From Lucas and Carla, how can I test DocDigitizer?
Okay, perfect. So it's very easy. The first step would be for you to send an invoice to extract@docdigitizer.com. So that will allow you to test DocDigitizer over any type of invoice that you have, and understand the type of results we are able to deliver with no setup and with no previous knowledge about the template itself. So that would be the first layer of testing. If you want to jump in and work with our API or with our UiPath connectors or RPA connectors, just drop us a line over our website. We will have a call and try to understand a little bit more about your particular use case, and create a subscription so you can test it.
Okay, great, João. I think we have time for one more question. It's on the chatting. For Marcos, what happens if you send in the same document twice? Can it detect duplicates?
Okay, that is a very nice question. We can detect duplicates, but it's not a part of our service. Okay, so and the reason why it's not part of our service is because we are a stateless service, which means that for security and privacy reasons, we are not able to store, and we don't want to store any personal data or documents from our customers, which means that we receive the document, we process and deliver the results, and we erase all the data from our site, which means that although we have like the MD5 of the document and we could compare MD5, we are not storing data and not making any type of business logic over the historic usage of that particular customer. Nevertheless, we return all the data that is needed for that comparison to be done on the customer end in their robot or in their system.
Perfect, João. I think we are going to hand our Q&A because we have a lot of questions from our audience. We will try to reach out everyone by email, okay? And João, that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Okay, so before closing the session, just for you guys to know, we will have next week 2 additional sessions. One where we will talk more about RPA integration, and on February 22, and on February 25 we will have a session dedicated to QIC automation, which is very interesting because we will try to talk a little bit about the fraud part, which is very interesting. So you can register right away in Livestorm /DocDigitizer, and soon you will receive follow-up from this session with all the questions answered, with a couple more information, with a presentation, and with this link to register to the next sessions. Meanwhile, feel free to reach out to us, ask any question, book a discovery call. And once again, I would like to thank you all for taking this time to meet us. And it was a very pleasant session, and hope to see you soon on the next sessions. So thank you very much and have a lovely week.